Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're traveling back to Bedford Falls for a film that has become as essential to Christmas as snow and eggnog, Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life, the 1946 masterpiece that flopped upon release, but has since earned its place as one of the most beloved films in American cinema. Starring James Stewart in a career-defining performance, this $3.18 million production was nominated for 5 Academy Awards and has been preserved in the National Film Registry for its cultural, historical, and aesthetic significance. Whether you're a lifelong fan or someone who's never understood why everyone cries at the end, this video will break down everything: the plot, the performances, the surprising darkness, and the enduring legacy. Stick around to the end. Why does a film that was called a dud upon release now hold 94% on Rotten Tomatoes? George Bailey is introduced as a boy in 1919 Bedford Falls, risking his life to save his younger brother Harry from drowning in icy waters. From the first scene, we get a sense of his personality. He's selfless, impulsive, and destined for greatness he'll never quite reach. Alongside him are his parents, who run the Bailey Building and Loan, and the villainous Henry F. Potter, the richest man in town, whose greed stands in direct opposition to everything the Baileys represent. The film quickly establishes stakes through a series of heartbreaking setbacks. George saves Harry, but the resulting ear infection costs him hearing in one ear, disqualifying him from the job he wanted. He dreams of college, of traveling the world, of becoming an architect, but each time he's about to leave Bedford Falls, responsibility pulls him back. His father dies. Harry gets a scholarship, so George must stay to run the building and loan. He marries his childhood sweetheart Mary, but their honeymoon is interrupted by a bank run. He builds homes for the town's working families, but each success comes at the cost of his own dreams. By the end of this introduction, we already understand the tragedy. A man who gave everything to everyone, now standing on a bridge on Christmas Eve, believing his life has been worthless. The relationships in It's a Wonderful Life form the emotional architecture that makes the film's climax, well, absolutely devastating. George's interactions with Mary reveal a partnership built on love, patience, and, mutual sacrifice. Donna Reed, in her breakout role, plays Mary as much the hero of the piece as George. She's the woman who turns their drafty old house into a home, who puts their honeymoon money towards stopping the bank run, and who waits for George to realize what he already has. Their scene dancing in the high school gymnasium, falling into the swimming pool beneath the floor, is honestly pure cinematic magic. Mr. Potter, played by Lionel Barrymore, serves as the film's shadow, a Scrooge-like character whose mania for money stands in direct contrast to George's community-first philosophy. Potter offers George a job making $20,000 a year, enough to travel the world to escape, but the price is abandoning the families who depend on him. When George refuses, Potter becomes the engine of his destruction, stealing Uncle Billy's misplaced $8,000 and letting George take the fall. Supporting characters like Uncle Billy, played by Thomas Mitchell, George's scatterbrained uncle whose mistake sets the climax in motion, and Clarence Oddbody, portrayed by Henry Travers, the angel who hasn't earned his wings yet, provide both comic relief and, cosmic perspective. One fascinating aspect is how George's relationship with his brother Harry, whose life George saved, reverses by the film's end, with Harry toasting George as the richest man in town. As the plot unfolds, George's life becomes a series of deferred dreams and deepening despair. Key event 1 is the bank run. In the depths of the Great Depression, panicked depositors demand their money from the building and loan. George, about to leave on his honeymoon, instead explains that their money isn't in the bank, it's in each other's homes. He offers the $2,000 from his honeymoon savings to keep them afloat, and the crowd slowly disperses, taught a lesson in self-sacrifice they will not forget. This sequence establishes George's character irrevocably. Then key event 2 delivers the film's devastating turning point. Uncle Billy loses the $8,000 deposit. On Christmas Eve, Billy walks past Potter's bank with the money in a newspaper and, without realizing, hands it to Potter himself. When George discovers the loss, he knows Potter will use it to destroy the building and loan. Desperate, he begs Potter for help, and Potter calls the police instead. George's final line before his breakdown, "I want to live again," shatters the audience alongside him. The filmmakers use pacing masterfully. Frank Capra, working with cinematographers Joseph Walker and Joseph Biroc, shoots Bedford Falls with a Norman Rockwell warmth that makes its darkness all the more crushing. The sequence where George prays at Martini's bar is lit to emphasize his isolation. Alone in a crowded room, literally on his knees. When Clarence appears, the film shifts from stark black and white realism to something more luminous. The alternate world George experiences, Pottersville, where his never having been born has allowed corruption to flourish, is shot with harsher shadows and more garish lighting. Watching George realize that his life, for all its disappointments, touched and saved countless others, is the emotional payoff everything has been building toward. It's a Wonderful Life isn't just a Christmas movie. It's a film that wrestles with despair, sacrifice, and the quiet dignity of ordinary life. One of the most prominent themes is the value of a single life. George's crisis is existential. He believes his life has been wasted, that he's worth more dead than alive. Clarence's gift is showing him the world without him, a world where Harry drowned, where the pharmacist Mr. Gower went to prison for poisoning a patient, where the town's working families live in Potter's slums, where his own mother doesn't recognize him. The film argues that we can't see our own impact, that our goodness ripples outward in ways we'll never know. Another theme, community versus greed, runs through every frame. The Bailey Building and Loan isn't just a business, it's an alternative to Potter's rapacious capitalism. George builds homes for families who would otherwise rent from Potter. His father's motto was a roof over their heads, not profit margins. When George offers his honeymoon money to panicked depositors, he's choosing people over self-interest, the same choice Potter would never make. The film's climax, the entire town pouring into George's living room to bail him out, is community's victory over isolation. The film's exploration of sacrifice and its rewards cuts both ways. George sacrifices everything, his education, his travels, his dreams, for others. The film doesn't pretend this sacrifice is easy or fair. George's resentment is real and earned. But it argues that the connections forged through sacrifice are their own reward. When George's brother Harry toasts the richest man in town, he's not talking about money. Critics have noted the film's surprising darkness. George's suicide ideation, the existential horror of being erased, the scenes of Pottersville's vice and corruption. This is not a typical holiday film. But that darkness is what makes its light so powerful. As Roger Ebert wrote, the movie does not deny despair, it stares it down. There are some fascinating details behind It's a Wonderful Life that make the experience even richer. Frank Capra actually conceived the film as his answer to the question, "What's wrong with us now?" after returning from the Second World War. He really wanted to make a film about, the beauty of our country, the richness of its people, and he rejected the cynicism he saw creeping into American life. The production itself was absolutely grueling. The snow, for example, was made of fire-retardant foam that got into the actors' eyes and mouths, and the $3.18 million budget made it one of the most expensive films of its era. James Stewart was honestly haunted by his wartime experiences when he took the role. He'd flown 20 combat missions over Germany, suffering from what we'd now call PTSD. Stewart later said that George Bailey's breakdown was the most difficult thing I've ever done on film, and he drew on his own psychological struggles for that performance. So, here's some fun trivia for you. The famous line, "Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings," actually wasn't in the original script. Henry Travers just improvised it. Now, the film's initial release, believe it or not, was a box office disappointment, partly because theaters had discounted it as part of a double feature, which really hurt its gross. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Editing, and Best Sound. But, yeah, it didn't win any of them. Its copyright lapsed in 1974 due to a clerical error, and for decades television stations broadcast it for free, which ended up transforming it from a forgotten failure to a beloved classic. As the story reaches its climactic turning point, George stands on the bridge, ready to end his life. But before he can jump, a man plunges into the icy water, Clarence, his guardian angel, who can't swim. George saves him, and honestly, that's what makes the rest of the film possible. The key moment arrives, not with fanfare, but with whispered desperation. In the alternate world where George never existed, he runs through Bedford Falls, discovering all the lives his absence destroyed. He finds Martini's bar, where his brother Harry drowned as a boy. He kneels on the sidewalk screaming, "I want to live again." It's honestly the most naked moment in American cinema of its era, a man begging for the life he was ready to throw away. The resolution is, well, transcendent. George returns to the bridge, clutching the flower from his daughter Zuzu's petals. It's proof he's alive again. He runs home through the snow as friends and family pour in, each bringing money to save him. Harry arrives, having returned from the war to hear his brother needs him. In the most famous toast in cinema, Harry raises his glass. "To my big brother George, the richest man in town." Zuzu whispers, "Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. A bell rings on the Christmas tree." George looks heavenward and smiles. The filmmakers intended these final moments to leave a lasting impression. No man is a failure who has friends. And sometimes, the life we think is worthless is the one that mattered most. So, in conclusion, It's a Wonderful Life delivers a timeless, deeply human story that has only grown in stature since its troubled release. James Stewart's performance is honestly a miracle of emotional honesty. Frank Capra's direction balances darkness with transcendent light, and the film's message, that every life touches countless others, resonates as powerfully today as it did in 1946. It's not just a Christmas movie, it's a movie about what makes life worth living. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a comment with your thoughts. Does It's a Wonderful Life make you cry? And what's your favorite scene? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more movie reviews, deep dives, and behind-the-scenes insights. Thanks for watching, and remember, no man is a failure who has friends.